today on the Treatment Forum, I'm so excited to introduce our guest, Mila Golubov, who is Group Creative Director at 160 over 90. And we've worked together on two projects, actually, Pantene and Green Mountain Energy. And I'm so excited that you're here to chat about treatments. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's so good to see your face and reconnect. And I just really excited to get some of your insights on the treatment process. And I love to kind of kick it off with the question of, how long typically are you guys working on concepting a campaign to the point where then you bring it to production partners to start finding the right team to bring it to life?
I think it's variable. It really depends on the project. But usually, once we get through that first round of feedback, second round of feedback from the client, where we feel like they really actually want to do this thing, they're committed to the overarching idea, we'll start looking at partners to bring it to life. But we tend not to bring anyone in too early before the client is jiving because we don't want to kind of do a take back, which happens sometimes, right? Clients change their mind. We want to kind of bring people in when we have a mostly sure thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's interesting because sometimes people have asked me, like, do you like to be brought in early so that I can sort of help maybe fill in the gaps of places that you weren't considering? But that is always like a tricky, area to navigate just because then if everything changes or, bringing in somebody early can have pros and cons. But I do think that, like, I think for one of our projects, we were like going, and then there was like 2 months of
Yeah.
figuring something else out. So, which I was, fine with, but yeah, it's just from your point of view, I get why it's almost like sometimes it's too early. You really just need to make sure that you're flushing things out before you really bring in too many other,
Yeah.
voices.
A- And it's clients aren't as reliable as they used to be with their budgets. They'll say they want to do something, they'll say they have the funds to do it, and then you'll find out kind of halfway through it, oh, wait, they didn't get it approved, or their budget got slashed in half, or all that good stuff. So we try
All that
to
good stuff.
align as much as we can before we bring people in because we want things to be real. And, these days, like, everything is variable, everything's changing all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, the just thinking of how much can change in a year in terms of maybe even like where the money is being spent and stuff. It's everything is definitely that's all that you can rely on is that things continue to evolve. So then when you move into the bidding process and you're looking, at directors or photographers, do you rely pretty heavily on your producers to find you the right talent? Or do you sort of have like your own catalog or like saved links of just people that you really love and that you've been wanting to work with?
We usually let the producers do a first pass. What I will say is almost every time I'll suggest other people or I'll have my team suggest other people as well. Because obviously everyone goes to the usual suspects, everyone goes to people they've worked with before, everyone goes to people that are already in the system, right? So you're not
Mhm.
necessarily getting the most diverse pool of applicants if you just
Yeah.
go with who's in the system, or particularly when you want to push on things that are culturally relevant or a particular niche category. Like, you want to sort of pull in people that you think are right too. So I'll often kind of let that first pass happen and then also pull in people kind of from my Rolodex or people I found or people my team feels really excited about.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that because you're seeking out to create, more diversity and more opportunities for talent that might maybe not have like the big company behind them that everybody sees their work. Like there could be a more underrepresented person that you've been following, which is like really helpful in terms of shaking things up because I do think that there needs to be more inroads to those like smaller boutique shops or like the freelancer that you could pair with a production company or something. So I really appreciate that I'm hearing that from you because yeah, I think like people are under pressure. Like I'm sure your producer's under pressure to like find 10 people that would be great for it, or I don't even know how many links you get. And so they're just like scouring and they
Sometimes
want
it's a little more speed than need, right? They're doing whatever.
yeah, totally. That's yeah. When you get the like list of links that you're going through and you're going through with your partners, do you guys typically align on like the top 3?
We usually kind of all go off separately, pick our favorites, plop in a Google Doc, and then have a conversation about where the convergence is or where
Yeah.
the divergence is. And I think for me, I always look to, is one of my creatives working under me more of an expert in this category than me? Do they
Uh,
know the space more? Is it, for example, it's a multicultural like campaign? Do they know a more interesting director than me? Probably, yes. You know, is it super Gen Z? Do they know better than me?
yeah.
So I'm always looking at kind of people, everyone's individual taste too, and everyone's individual context, because I think that, right, you're going to know the people from your experience. You're going to have an eye for the things you've done before, but
Mhm. Right.
sometimes you need something that feels really different. I think some of our younger creatives have like an eye for stuff that I'm not as young as I used to be, that I don't have for yet, and I think
Mhm.
that that's exciting too. And I think sometimes like we'll usually converge, but there'll be like an outlier. And I think that outlier kind of comes from someone seeing something a little bit different.
Mm. Is there a strategy in how you approach like finding the 3 people? Like, is there kind of a strategy between the
Yeah.
3 to kind of like mix things up a little bit in the treatment process?
There's usually always one that the client might not be entirely comfortable with, but kind of pushes the edges of the execution that can either maybe sway them or make the other ones feel like more solid choices. So just kind of putting
Yeah.
something on the edges. I will say for my clients, it's been really important to have directors that they actually like, and can get along with, and that feel
Mhm.
collaborative and understand their brands and have some kind of passion or affinity for their categories. I
Yeah.
found that goes a long way. A lot of our clients are clients where we haven't always done a million videos for them before, or they're spending bigger budgets than they used to spend. So
Yeah.
the director is part of that building trust to do something they aren't 100% comfortable doing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, are there times when you guys ask the director to pitch to the client directly or like kind of combine the call so that it's both you and the client on the call? So like you don't have to like regurgitate it. Like, do you like that? And have you been asking that of director photographer teams?
Sometimes I think more for directors than photographers. Photographers will usually just share their work. Clients also, I mean, certain clients will have photographers that they have associations with. So whenever I work in
Yeah.
fashion, there's kind
Yeah.
of like a given, like they have their preferences. They feel very strongly about them. You could
Yeah.
provide alternates, but they're probably
Yeah.
going to go with their preferences.
Yeah.
But I do find it's really important to get the director on the phone call with the client. I think if we're down to 2, sometimes we do it earlier. If
Hmm.
there's multiple in the mix, we'll usually kind of land on someone and then have that first meeting where they kind of bring their treatment to the client and show it and kind of show their POV. But I think it's usually when there's a divergence from kind of what we would want and what the client would want. We'll kind of bring them in earlier,
Hmm.
just so that we can have like a real conversation. They could meet the people, because a lot of the times they'll want someone on paper and then they meet the person and they just like them better.
Mm, interesting. Yeah, I love that because it's only been I think like twice where I've pitched when a client was also on the call. I think one was um, with Green Mountain, and then another one was with my beekeepers project. I like talked to the founder, and it was just like it's really inspiring because it's like it's you're talking to like the vision, like the people that have built this for however many years, 25 years, or if it's like a startup, it's their baby. So then you connect on another level of growth, and I kind of for a moment get a glimpse of what you guys are doing, which is like really giving them this like vision of where you can take their brand. And it's really fun. And I also like that I can just speak to them directly because it just creates, like a rapport. So I'm definitely an advocate for that.
And in that case, too, they have an internal creative team. So they
Oh, yeah.
really want to have a close connection to everyone that's part of the process, how it's made. Another instance where we did something similar was for Marriott, where we created a K-drama for them. So it was really important to have a director that was authentically from the Korean community, that understood the culture, that could speak to it in a very nuanced way and like make
Mhm.
it very authentic. So meeting that director, incorporating, in that case, actually, the director was very ingrained in every step of the process. After that first round script was created, we built
Mhm.
the whole thing together because it was so important that the nuances were right.
The more that I can be involved in each part of the process, I mean, I love the more that I can just kind of develop the relationship, because I think the communication is always key, like through that pre-production process. Feeling that you get, like that's a gut feeling that you just feel like this person is going to be right based on the creative call. And does that sort of exist? And does that carry over into the treatment? Or have you ever been surprised, like pleasantly surprised by the treatment and totally swayed your opinion?
I think so. I actually have had the opposite, where someone's book is really interesting. You get really excited about them, and then the way they are on a call feels like they could give it, like, leave it or take it, like they're not
Oh,
truly invested in the brand, or they haven't fully like read the script, or
oh,
and it just kind of feels, or they try to make it something completely different when we've gone through a lot of hoops to get the version approved by the client. So I,
yeah.
I think it's been more of, I think usually if I like someone and they're great on a call, it all kind of jives. I think the big thing is, are they hungry? Do they actually get really excited about the work? Will they put in extra effort because the budgets aren't what they used to be, right? You get
Yeah.
paid less to do more. And I think that sometimes someone could be a really big name and really interesting on paper, and then they come to the meeting and it doesn't feel like they're bringing a lot to it, or they're trying, versus
Mhm.
someone could be a really small name and not look as good on paper, but they put so much effort into the treatment. They got to know the brand so well. They
Mhm.
really care and over deliver, and you know that they'll come back on the back end.
There's a lot of people that don't necessarily, give good phone, or they're just not like super animated or something. It just depending on your personality. And so just that reminder of like that comes through, and that you need to just really kind of get that true like inspiration across. And that it is sort of like kind of, you're kind of like speed dating, like in a way.
Well, also, I mean, timelines are going to be tight, money's going to be tight. You want to be around people you like.
That actually brings up kind of moving into the treatment process, when you were saying that sometimes somebody will take what you had in terms of the concept, the campaign concept, and completely kind of change it and go a different direction that maybe throws you off. So because there is some things that come up where my EPs are pushing me to sort of like put your ideas out there, put everything out there, and I always feel like there's a fine line between going too far and that being kind of a turnoff.
I think I am very open to explorations of the visual world, like that footprint. I think when the scripts changed, the difficult thing is we've usually gone through some hoops to get them approved by the
Yeah.
client. So when they see a treatment that it goes like a complete 180, they'll they'll kind of question it, and then someone that could have been a good candidate becomes a bad candidate because the client says, why does their treatment look so different from what I approved?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
it's usually been approved at that point. Sometimes it's an open conversation. So, like that K drama example, that was an open conversation. It was from the beginning discussed to be a true collaboration, with the script being able to be changed. But for the most part, at the point that we brought someone in, there is that sense of approval from the client, and often difficult clients that are very specific about kind of the choice of language and the arcs of the story,
Mm,
that like additions are great, like alternate scenes, or but when it's a replacement of, um
mhm.
it can become an issue sometimes, because then it sort of looks like,
What do you like to see in a treatment in terms of, depending on where you are in your career, if you're like mid-career, you have a production company behind you, you might be able to have a designer, you might be able to have a treatment writer. But if you're starting out, like you don't have those things. And so the look and feel of your treatment might be a little bit more like simplified. So that is one thing I think that is interesting, that, I don't know if that comes up where it's like really obvious. And if you have a feeling whether or not it's written by the director, I would assume you'd want it. Can you tell when it's not written by a director and it feels like it's been written by someone else?
I'm not sure if I can tell, because I don't know everyone's voice and it's different. I will
Yeah,
say sometimes some things feel more well written while some
yeah,
feel less. So I think
yeah.
you could see the difference in the quality of the writing. But for me, for the most part, other than like you said, comedy, I really am looking for the visual eye in the director, and I'm looking for a clear POV. So it doesn't have to be the most beautiful deck in the world, but it should feel like it has a distinct vision, has a distinct like perspective on what this can be and what this shouldn't be. I also actually pay
Mhm.
a lot of attention to the bios of the
Oh, that's
directors and
cool.
kind of their
I never
story,
knew
and if
that.
there's a convergence between their story and the brand that we're trying to, because I
Oh,
know
I
that
love that.
that's such a big sway for our clients. But
Really?
yeah, so like I
Yeah.
mean for you, like your connections to kind of like you actually like reading the bid and all that stuff, that was part of the bio we sold to
Oh,
the
cool.
client,
Oh,
like your
cool.
credentials in the space, and that you were kind of authentic in the space. And I like working in a culture agency, it's particularly important that anyone we bring on is kind of authentic to the space that we are talking about, whether it's like it's a basketball film and they used to play basketball and they truly care about it, like
Yeah.
things like that do make a difference.
Hmm. No, I love that. I actually recently rewrote my bio because I was like, oh, this is so snoozy. I need to like make it more fun, because like writing and even just getting, having somebody else write it is always like nicer to not just kind of like write your own
They'll
bio. But
flaunt you a little more than you would
yeah,
flaunt
yeah, I'm like,
yourself.
I don't know, what do I say? But no, that's really cool because it's almost like, I mean, obviously, an authentic connection coming through in the treatment is, probably, you can feel it. Like you can feel it in the tone. And yeah, I mean, I just didn't consider that you would be kind of using the bio. It's really interesting, just kind of getting to know somebody on another level. And
Yeah.
when you're kind of going through the treatment, is there like a certain section, like, are you reading through the whole thing? Or is there preferences of how it's sort of organized that you like or dislike?
I don't have a preference. I will say that sometimes people write a lot without saying anything. So
Mm,
sometimes when things are overridden, it's hard to get what the recommendation is, or it sounds like someone's trying to be too smart or too deep, or I think the takeaways, the differences between the treatments should feel very clear.
yeah,
This person is proposing to do this entire thing in the dark with one spotlight, and this person is proposing to move between shadows. Get it? Those are two different lighting treatments. I get
yeah,
it. Like
yeah.
this one's going surreal. This one's going hyper real. I get it.
Mhm,
Like just really
mhm.
clear kind of differences that you could point to, almost like the headline of each
Mm,
category, so that because I read everything. I'll read every single word. A lot of people don't.
yeah, yeah,
I do think having references and things that are similar, I think the biggest thing that gives at least our clients confidence is, have you done something similar before?
yeah.
So that actually sways a lot of kind of the choice between candidates. So like the POV might be there equally for both, but the one that has more of a history of similar things in similar styles kind of helps sort of like hold the client's hand into the
Mhm.
decision.
And so what would be your advice if you are kind of in that position and you want to be able to showcase that you can do that and kind of fill in those gaps, and kind of present yourself in the best way?
Yeah.
If you have any
It's hard
opinion.
because there are some categories that just have such inherent biases, like
Uh,
fashion and beauty. Like
yeah.
there is a definite usual suspects that happens there. But I think it's just deciding whether you want to feel like the category or want to disrupt the category. And
I like that.
sometimes bringing someone from the outside. So, for example, we had a sports brand that was trying to do its first fashion collection, but like taking someone that is from like a very edge of fashion and taking them to sports. What happens there, right?
Yeah.
So I think sometimes people coming from a different category could create some interesting friction and make things look different. It just has to feel that when they do that treatment, it's tailored and informed by that brand, even if it's
Mhm.
divergent for the category, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
But I do think if you're trying to do something that looks like what already exists in the category in one of these state categories, there's probably other people that are already doing that, that are doing a version of that. So whatever
Mhm.
creates a unique perspective or something
Mhm.
different to bring to it, I think is
Mhm.
probably what you'd be on the lookout for. But we've definitely made the great thing is culture is converging, right? Like nothing is
Mhm.
one category anymore, right? Sports and
Mhm.
fashion are converging, music and
Mhm.
art are converging. So
Mhm.
sort of people that go across categories are interesting right now.
Mm. That's cool to hear. Yeah, I feel like I just live in the food and beverage space, and then I live in like beauty, but not like traditional beauty. Like I bring in comedy into beauty,
Yeah,
which is like
quirky beauty.
quirky beauty. Yeah, exactly. Or like bold beauty, like the opposite of
Yeah,
kind of the goops of the world is like
yeah.
because I did that in Air Project. And it's funny because I'm like, just even putting words to it, describing the difference of the cross disciplinary genres, because I love it because then I'm constantly challenged in different ways. But it's cool that you're saying it's really hot right now to be in different categories. It's trending.
Trending, cultural convergence.
Cultural convergence. Yeah, you put a much better word to it. I love that. Um, so in so you said you don't have a preference on length, but you're mainly kind of look. What's interesting is that you said like having a one liner, like a headline. And so what I've also started doing is sort of like having a line that kind of is bold and sort of
Yeah.
maybe synopsizes the whole page. And I feel like I just need to prep you for success in terms of presenting to your client because you're, sharing you're sharing the creative to me. I'm making a treatment and then you have to pitch again. Like you're pitching to win the job and then you're pitching for who's going to execute the job. So you're just constantly in pitch mode. So you just need like concise headlines like of a
And
treatment.
and and honestly, in the ideal world, right, this conversation is its own conversation and its own meeting. In the real world, it's like, here's this other meeting. By the way, let's talk about directors for 10 minutes.
Oh yeah,
You
for
know?
10. Yeah.
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 So that is why that concise kind of headline piece, the easy comparison, like, hey, direction one, edgier, but a little less on brand. Direction two, very on brand, but might be a little safe. Direction three, right in the middle. Your perfect bet. Go. But
It's
if
to
we can
use it.
surmise you all in like these very simple forms, it helps with the minimal time we get to do it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, it's good to hear like what you're up against. Um, and so are you often surprised at who the client picks? And if you really push for someone and does that hold any weight? I mean, I hope it does, like
Yeah.
depending on the relationship that you have with them, if you're like, I highly suggest this person for X, Y, and Z. Or is there like surprises in that process that come up a lot?
Generally, the client will go with your recommendation. unless there is an existing relationship that kind of
Mhm.
push it. Yeah, but generally, if we have done the work to really find people that align with their brand, that we think are going to be good for them, that have work that feels like the right example. I've had the client not go with our recommendation, but I also didn't feel strongly about our recommendation in those moments. Those were cases where, hey, producers found some people really fast. They weren't 100% on the mark, but we had to show them something. So usually when we feel really good about the recommendation, the client will also go with the one we recommend. Unless it's really something where like people aren't 100% right, but we have to put it in front of them because we have to put someone in front of them, you know?
Mhm. Are you ever in the situation where the budgets that are presented along with the directors are very different, and are you shared that information, and does that kind of change like how you present things? Or do you kind of lean on your producer to say, hey, like there's no way we can present this person unless they're closer to the others or something, like, because I guess it is this balance between the creative and the work, but then coming in line with the budget, because that money is obviously a factor.
We usually don't put someone in the mix if they're wildly, wildly out of budget.
Yeah.
We'll usually pre-vet to get them close. There's definitely people that are over that we put in the mix with people that are sometimes under, but in those cases, we talk to the client about what the value is between one versus the other. There's usually a
Mhm.
difference in deliverables that kind of
Yeah.
come where you're getting less. You're actually usually getting less out of the more expensive person.
Mm.
So there are sometimes it's based on value, sometimes it's just based on flexibility. Sometimes they will pay more if they truly want someone who's an expert in that category. So, for example, for Invesco, we do a lot of documentary style
Mhm.
content. So they want people that really get great performances out of non actors, get real emotions. So they tend to lean toward people that can pull that out of people, and have leaned with our more experienced recommends versus some of the ones that had some experience in the category but not as much because they just felt more comfortable, because they couldn't
Yeah.
control it. So I think that in some cases kind of that extra money gains confidence, and in some cases that extra money is a decider of going for a more value driven director, especially with
Mhm.
content where there's usually a lot of asks, and
Yeah.
people are trying to do more with their budgets.
Yeah. Yeah. I was wondering if you've seen any AI coming up in pitches, and or if you're using it for pitches, or like what is the kind of the taste level in terms of or even like pitch. I don't
Yeah.
even know if you're as far as pitching it in creative. I don't
Oh
know,
yeah,
maybe.
no, we did an AI driven arena for Invesco where like the entire
Oh.
gaming experience was customized using AI tech. Yeah,
Oh.
so clients
Oh,
are
amazing.
loving AI now. They're also scared of it. We are using it for comping. We are using it in our pitch decks. It is a big time saver. I will say AI photography does have a distinct look that
Yeah.
doesn't look, like you can tell it's
Yeah.
AI. So I've seen some of the stuff with AI video lately where I've been a bit surprised, like that
Yeah.
it was AI. I mean, granted, it was not like complicated plots, but just the
Right.
quality of it, I was a bit surprised that it was put together with AI. But I think that it's a easy way to bring a world to life and combine elements, and we use it. We do a lot of experiential, so our teams use it a lot to, rather than doing a render for everything, create
Mhm.
use AI to create a sense of a space.
Mm. And so with Invesco, it was like the actual back end of it wasn't kind of a visual.
No, no, it was the back end. Well, so there was so it was an arena, and then it was reactive to you, and then AI informed all the kind of reactions to the crowd to your live gameplay. And
Oh.
then there's reactions of the kind of radio announcer. So it was, yeah, but they used kind of AI as the underlying technology to do it. But yeah,
Mhm.
no, clients are it's funny, a year ago they were scared of it. Because we had a bunch when AI first started becoming a thing, we had a bunch of AI ideas, and we are going to do, and Chat GPT will do this, and this will happen. And they
Okay,
were
yeah.
still kind of scared there, and then it's just become so common. Like every client wants an AI photo booth at events. Like it's becoming real, like kind of table stakes now to use AI as part of at least
So
experiences.
yeah, definitely. That makes sense. I mean, do you think there will ever be a point where I've seen some agencies and there's been like a few asks to have AI in an actual campaign, but from your point of view, are you ever like, is the client ever asking like, yeah, we would love somebody that has AI on their reel, or like, are they still the copyright thing is a concern? I'm not sure if that's kind of preventing clients from moving forward with it in the visual language of their campaign.
I don't think it's clients haven't asked for it, but clients want innovation. So
Right.
it's just a good shorthand for an innovative solution to a problem, but it's not necessarily like they want our creatives replaced by AI
Yeah.
creatives. But if we could infuse like the thinking into an experience, so like another idea we had for an experience was going to be visualizing dreams, and the AI was
Oh,
going to take the
awesome.
text and visualize the dreams around you. Like, so like a lot of ideas like that, where the AI is almost a technology tool to bring
Yeah.
an experience to life, is things the clients are interested in. I don't know if they can even tell if our comps are AI or not. We just know.
That's amazing. Well, that's a good thing in a way, so that it doesn't have the look of AI, because I think
Yeah. It's
immediately,
just for me, I could tell. It's very kind of,
yeah.
it has a sheen. There's an AI sheen about.
Yeah, the smooth skin, the five finger or the six finger hands or whatever. Like, look at the hands and the feet, you'll be able to tell. I wanted to just find out, because you are such a proponent for like, women in the industry, and you're so active on LinkedIn, and I'm just always loving everything that you're sharing. Also for moms and motherhood in the industry, and going back to sort of that diversity and equity, inclusion, DI in the treatment process. Free the Work obviously became kind of a resource for that, and unfortunately now it's going away. That's a whole nother conversation. But do you feel like it had an impact on the types of artists and directors, photographers that you were seeing come through? Like, has it kind of pushed the needle in any way?
It's interesting because my producers weren't using it, but creatives were.
Oh, really?
So
That's
whenever creatives were sourcing people themselves, they were using sites like that because it became a resource. You could look at everyone at once, and I
yeah.
think producers still continue to look at kind of production companies that they have worked with, but I find that
Mhm.
creatives do use all those sites, and they look for people themselves, and they say someone more like this, right? And it just kind of helps educate the conversation and bring more kind of diverse. Even if we don't end up with that person, we end up with more people like that person versus kind of but I will say it has changed in the last few years, just the mix of directors that gets shared with you generally, or shared by the production companies too. There's just a
Mhm.
general push toward more diversity. There's a general push toward more female directors. Um, and it makes sense. And it always made sense for a lot of the work. It just wasn't what it was, you know?
Yeah. What do you feel like makes a winning treatment in your eyes?
Passion, I would say, where
Mm.
they feel truly passionate about, like, I wanna think that they really care about the tampon, you know? I
Yeah,
wanna
okay,
think that
whatever
they
gender you are. Yeah, yeah.
I wanna drink the Kool-Aid and believe that they really care about the tampon, and they see the tampon in a way that nobody else saw the tampon, because then I can convince the client that their tampon is the best tampon in the world, And I think, like, when people are passionate about something, right? Whether it's basketball or for some reason this tampon, like it makes people excited to work with them. You know that they're not going to half-ass anything. You know that they're going to put in extra effort. You know that it becomes a situation where if you put them in front of the client is going to get excited too, because for the clients, their tampon is sexy, right? Like they're living and breathing this, everything's going to be a tampon now. But they're living and breathing this tampon every day, right? Like they want to feel good about what they do. And it's part of our job to make them feel good. So if you help us make them feel good, they'll give us more money. We'll do more interesting projects. And it just goes full circle.
Yes, yes. I love the more money aspect of it. Well, we could do this for this much more. What do you think? That is such a perfect way to end. It's just like having that passion come through in your pitch process and being authentic to your voice, and all of those things were just really helpful to hear from your perspective. So thank you so much for being here, Mila. And I always obviously also love working with you and how your brain works. So if anyone wants to find you and reach out, how should they find you?
LinkedIn. All over that place.
We're all over that. No, LinkedIn is like the under the radar, like healthy
social network.
Media. Yeah. I think you're so great at that. And staying connected there is great. Thank you again, and we will chat very soon, I hope.
Thank you.